I'd like to go back to doing videos about books I'm reading. Now, there was a book that a episode of Wisecracked mentioned, so I decided to check it out from my local library. Those exist, and you should go to yours. The book is The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. It also kind of ties into this thing called terror management theory. The idea is that everything we do is because we're trying to pretend like we're immortals. We're trying to convince ourselves we're immortals, and trying to convince ourselves that it's not the case, that we're all going to die. That's pretty much what it is. Anyway, so far I've just read the foreword. I already know the general theory because I have Google and stuff, and I watched that video I'm going to link in the bottom. But Sam Keen, a journalist who wrote the foreword, has this 4-strand theory of Becker's theory. The first strand is that the world's super terrifying. Most living things live in a kill or be killed environment, or run away super fast or be eaten type environment, and humans like to pretend like the world isn't as terrifying as it is. But it's pretty terrifying. Read history. Reading history is like reading an onion of awful, where the more layers of onion that you cut off, the more layers of atrocities you find. So that's the first strand. The second strand is the basic motivation of all humankind to cope with the terror of mortality. They're all going to die. And essentially the third strand, I keep looking because I suck at memory. The third strand is essentially to keep the terror of death and the realization that we're mortals unconscious, way deep into there, so we can pretend like it doesn't exist. This can often involve pretending that we have afterlives so that we can extra pretend that we're actually immortal when we're not immortal. We are super mortal. So yeah, the fourth strand has to do with how denying that we're mortal and denying that death's existence can actually turn people super evil. I'm using super a lot for some reason. The idea is that some people respond to the fear and terror of death with this whole heroic concepts, heroic archetypes, where through this heroic archetypes they can feel like they transcend death. So this can include things like joining a fanatical religion or ideology or belief system as a part of like this attempt to transcend death by being a part of some bigger thing. He also says how the terror of death also motivates people to do good things, but in the end, the idea being that if they do something worthwhile, that's their way of transcending death. I haven't really gotten to the solution yet in the book, but that's okay. This has a very existentialist feel to it, which is why I'm not surprised that I've already saw Søren Kierkegaard's name in there. If you don't know, Søren Kierkegaard is a philosopher type, and he's like the only Christian existentialist that got famous. But existentialism normally starts in nihilism. It starts in like, here's a hole, the world's terrible, but it literally gives you a ladder out of the hole eventually. So that's why this is not a book I recommend reading just reading half of. You gotta read the whole thing, because if it's like any existentialist book, if you don't read the ending, you'll just be sad. It's very, very sad the whole time. Alright, so I recommend this book, The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker.